So you was in the Freaknik area. He was you was in the back of the
But believe I never went to Freak. I never
His wife is watching. Okay, I got it. I never went. He never wasn't me. Listen, Miss Moore, he never went to Freaknik. He had nothing to do with that. He has no idea who Two Live Crew is. He knows nothing.
One of the biggest lessons I learned is as a leader, as a dad, you have to be a server. You said it's a selfless thing. So I think I became more selfless, or understanding what that means to be selfless.
What's up, man? It's your boy Chris Crump
and Chizzy
to the Boy Man King podcast, man. We're excited, man. We got a great guest for you guys today. A friend of mine, man. Welcome to the stage, Marcus Moore, man. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, Marcus, welcome.
Hey, welcome.
The journey continues, man. Listen, this is my friend, my neighbor, man, my homeboy. Our children are kicking it together. Like we're just really building as men. We're excited to have you on the podcast, man. Welcome, bro.
Hey, appreciate you having
me.
How you
feeling?
I feel good, man. I've been checking out the podcast.
Okay. You liking it so far?
I like it. I like the message you guys are talking about. So glad to have me.
Good, man. So let's jump right into it, man. Marcus Moore. Let's start. Of course, this is Boy Man King, so we're gonna explore the journey. The journey continues from boy to a man to a king. So let's start over with it. Tell us a little bit about Marcus Moore, where you were born, what your lifestyle was like, what your life was like growing up as a kid, where you're from. Let's get into it, man. Give our audience a little snippet of Marcus.
Usually when people ask me that, I'll say I'm just a little bit old country boy.
Okay,
okay. I grew up in Southwest Georgia, Moultrie, Georgia. My mom, a single parent, had me at 15. But I consider my childhood good. Okay. You know, my grandfather was a big influence on me. I lived with my grandfather until I was 10 years old. Now, it's a little tough for me to talk about my granddad now because my granddad died 3 years ago, and that was my guy, you know. I always tell people I grew up with a real life superhero. That's my grandfather friends called him Iron Man. And so I grew up in the country, worked, you know, in the fields and that kind of stuff. But that kind of stuff, I think, molded me. I don't regret it. You know, it put a certain work ethic in me. You know, when I graduated high school, I went off to the military for 4 years. When I came from the military, I moved to Atlanta because my uncle lived in Atlanta. He went to Kennesaw. He's only 5 years older than me, so I consider him more like a brother than my uncle with the way we grew up.
Before we get into your brother, though, man, let's talk about that southern field, man. Now, did you do oranges or watermelons or peas, peanuts? Like, what did you do?
It's going deep on you.
Tobacco. Tobacco.
How was I never picked tobacco. How was that?
Well, you do it in stages.
Yeah.
I initially started out what they call driving a tobacco harvester. It just has like 4 people sit at the bottom. It's mechanical belts that send the tobacco up to the top. You have 2 people on the top that take the tobacco and put it in what they call a tobacco rack, which will eventually get stored into a tobacco barn to cure the tobacco. But at that time, I was the driver because you just had to hold it in the middle of the road. But the interesting thing about that, being 11 and 12 years old, that thing had no power steering. It's easy to hold it in the road, but when you get to the end, you got to turn it. And initially, at first, I couldn't turn it around because I wasn't strong enough to turn it around. My uncle used to have to come from the back and turn it around. But by the summer, I was able to get it turned around.
How old were you, bro?
I was 11. I started that when 11. But the reason for that, one of my motivations is funny about that is because like I said, to get school clothes, you had to buy your own school clothes. And I can remember going into 4th or 5th grade, and my mom had bought me 2 pair of shoes. And this kind of thing, that's why I never bought my kid Velcro. These shoes was Velcro shoes, but they was off-brand.
Not the zips. They were in the zips.
Well, the zips, man, I can't even remember the name, man. But it was like, you know what? From here on out, I'm going to work. I'm not wearing these Velcro shoes.
Right. So I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I'm a country boy. I'm from the country of Bermuda, small island, 22 square miles. So when I hear stories about other people's experiences that are my contemporaries in terms of my age, it's like a history lesson to me.
Yeah.
Because for me, you could run up in Bermuda, and you can attest to this.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have those experiences. I can't sit here and have conversations about my childhood in that context. So it's interesting to hear your context, because I know you also talk about when you was picking watermelons and stuff like that.
Picking peas with my grandmama Becca at 8 years old, bro. Picking peas and peanuts with those 5-gallon buckets, making sure you don't put a bunch of roots in them, man. And then all that all day for $5.
Yeah.
My goodness.
You know what I'm saying?
I worked at the grocery store when I was 11 years old. I was packing groceries, as you know, coming in Bermuda. Our first job was packing groceries, and it was voluntary. Obviously, you get paid, you get tips, but it's amazing to see, how different, although similar, upbringings.
But it was normal because everybody else was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So you go through that. So how does it go from you when you talk about, hey, you go with your uncle who's really like your big bro, and you leave the country, southern fields, to the ATL, shawty. Like, come on, man. What was that culture shock like?
It was a culture shock because when I left and went to the military, I was at Fort Hood, which is Killeen, Texas.
What part of the military you was in?
I was in the Army.
Shout out to the military, man. Give it up for our vets, man. You know what I'm saying?
I did a little Army in Bermuda. We have your regiment. So does that qualify?
Nah.
That don't qualify?
No, but yeah. So you're in the Army.
and it was Killeen was a little small town, really, to be honest. But as we was talking about before we went on the air, the military introduced you to a lot of different people, from a lot of different places, different religions, different beliefs, and for me growing up, going to church all the time, Southern Baptist. But it was an awakening though, because it opened my mind to, not being so rigid in my thinking in that regard. So but it was different. But coming, the ATL has a culture all its own, man.
Did you come, what year you came to Atlanta? What year you came?
98, at the end of 98.
So you was in the Freaknik area. You was at the back of the
But believe it, I never went to Freak. I never
His wife is watching. Okay, I got it. I never went.
He never wasn't me. Listen, Miss Moore, he never went to Freaknik. He had nothing to do with that. He has no idea who Two Live Crew is. He knows nothing.
Now, it's not that I didn't want to experience that, but it just was a timing thing.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, I went to Freaknik. A couple times.
You came from out of the country to get to go to Freaknik?
Freaknik used to be, look, from Bermuda.
That sounds like something you
remember,
would do.
we had take it easy. We had a lot of young people that, I have an older brother, 5 years older than me, and he used to tell me stories about his brethren.
What type of stories he used to tell you?
This is a family show. We gonna keep it. But I went to Freaknik. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Back then, you know what Freaknik is. It was like
Listen, I have no idea what you guys talking about. I just heard something. Go Google. It was on Google.
Yeah, I heard.
So you in Atlanta. What's the next, what was the biggest challenge with that transition? So you an adult, you in the Army, you in Atlanta, you left your Southern ways, old Southern Christian boy. Now, what's you struggling with as a young man in transition?
I'll say the biggest challenge probably is, like I said, Atlanta has a culture all its own. And for a 22-year-old, I had a couple of my friends who lived here. Atlanta has a culture all its own. I just say, and so it's gonna just,
right.
The military is more regiment, so to speak. It's a lot more discipline. There's some repercussions if you're not doing so. Well, when I came to Atlanta, it was full full blown, 22. I had fun.
So we kind of jumped over adolescence a little bit. We jumped into 22. What was that like, pre-22? Because you spoke about your grandfather. You spoke about your uncle. I didn't hear you spoke about and your mom. I'm gonna ask that hard question. What was it like growing up? I'm not gonna say without a dad. What was the father experience?
Nah, you can say that. My dad wasn't around. I mean, I knew my dad. My dad's side of the family was around, but I didn't know my dad wasn't around.
How did that impact you as a youngster in your recollection?
Man, you know what? I've thought about that over the years, because I did have good role models as far as men is concerned, but it still wasn't my dad.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that does leave a void. And I've kind of rationalized that in my head to a certain degree. Like,
is it something you still, because this would like trips me out. It's like we're at this age and still your father is still in your head. Is that even though, as you still process and think about him, his role, the meaning of it, like still today, even though you rationalize it, you say, look, I'm gonna accept whatever, but is it still something that's like not quite solved or resolved?
I don't know if I wouldn't say it's solved, but I mean, I always wonder if my dad was around, if I would have made some different choices at different times. Right. I have a son, Crump know how I feel about Junior, and that part is my motivation is try to be a good dad, a good role model for him. And so it always has been a lingering question if my dad was around. The rationalization comes from my dad wasn't on the up and up. So the rationalization for me is I'm glad he wasn't around. Because if he was around and he was doing the things that he was doing, I don't know how that would have influenced me. Maybe that's my coping mechanism, as I've gotten older to deal with it. I don't know. But that's kind of the way I've looked at it.
I know we got to get into some other stuff, but a story just sparked in my head from us having a man-to-man conversation, man. Can you kind of share, you talked about your son, right? But your daughter, you mentioned to me that when it was a time and I know I'm kind of...
Nah, go ahead.
But like, you and your wife was not seeing eye to eye, right? And you wasn't in the spot that you were supposed to be in, and your little girl said something to you, man. Talk about that.
Man, I'll talk about my grandfather first, but I'm gonna answer your question. Sure. Because my grandfather knew what was going on, and him and my wife was always, cool. And he didn't talk a lot as far as that. He didn't ask me like who was right, who was wrong, what happened. Right. He just was like, man, you need to go get your family back. And that was pretty much it. But what Crump is speaking of, me and my wife were separated at one point, and I was going to pick up my kids, and my daughter made the statement. And Marcus probably don't even remember that this time, to be honest. My daughter made the statement like, "Daddy, I want my room back." That's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And
Jeez.
Yeah. And he was like, all your feelings, and all your justifications, and all your energy towards like your daughter. Because your daughter was like 10 or something.
Yeah, she was around. She was around.
What did that feel like, though?
Man, it's a punch in the gut. Yeah. And I say that because I don't think anyone who's married or go into marriage is going into it to fail. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And how I look at my youngins and how I want them to look at me as the leader all right? If we're talking about manhood and taking responsibility as the leader of our family, in some aspect, you failed.
Yeah, I can relate, brother.
You know what I mean? And that's just the bottom line. In some aspect, you fail.
So you get punched in the gut. You take responsibility. Bring us back. How you get back in? How you get our room back?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say how I got our room back. I would say how we, because it has to be both of us. I couldn't force her to come back. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of it is communication.
Sure.
And really being honest about your shortcomings and how we, because it's two people are going to compromise, right? Have some compassion, some communication, and marriages work. Let's just start there. So both people have to be willing
Right.
to like work on your tone, work on your communication. All those things has to happen, and both people have to be willing. But I do believe, as the man, you set the tone for how your family is going to run.
And I'm glad you're highlighting that, because this podcast is very, very important for highlighting the accountability piece,
Right.
For men especially,
Right.
Especially if you have an understanding for what God has actually instituted in terms of marriage and our responsibility, our accountability to God first,
Right.
to ourselves and to our family. So it's huge to have our listening audience and for all men to really be able to understand that, hey, you are at the core
Right.
of these choices. You are at the core of actually fixing them,
Right.
or making it
Right.
better, or making it worse.
Right.
You know what
right.
I mean?
Right.
And that's important to highlight. So I'm glad you're able to convey that.
It's highly important, for us having sons
Sure.
that early on they understand that, because I think, for a younger me, you want to point the finger,
Yeah.
because it's hard to say, hey, I'm the one. I'm the one messing up, and it's easy to blame. To deflect.
We were just talking about that off. We were just talking about that off camera.
That's hard, and that's a maturity thing. So
well, hats off to you, bro. Hats off to you, because I have this quote that I always say, it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility.
Yes, sir.
You have these quotes, these scriptures, these
Yes,
things
sir.
that's in your subconscious mind that says, okay, I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling. I'm seeing whatever I'm seeing, but I got to make a choice on my values. You made a choice to be responsible. You made a choice to take ownership. Once you did that, what was it about you learned about yourself? Now that you start to operate like that, not the point here, but the point here, once you decide to get your home back, get your marriage back, get your family back, whenever that was in that time, who is Marcus now because of that decision?
I think I'm a lot more patient. I think I'm a lot less heavy-handed. I would say, fortunate for me, or I would say some people would consider it fortunate. I just consider it was my responsibility. But for most of our marriage, my wife didn't work. Which to me is a good thing, because it empowered me in a lot of ways, right? Because I didn't have to worry about if something happened at school or doctor's appointments. So she have to have some credit for that, right?
Sure.
Like, even though it may not be financial credit, but it was some freedom, or I like to say empowerment to go.
And shout outs to your wife,
focus,
man.
right? Or try to grind.
Yeah.
But I would say one of the biggest lessons I learned is, as a leader, as a dad, you have to be a server. You have to be selfless. It's a selfless thing. So I think I became more selfless.
Yeah.
Or understanding what that means to be selfless.
Yeah. And it's weird, not even weird, because some people would think that this is just stuff that you automatically
No.
Like, you have to get to a real humbling space to really be able to say, I gotta serve. Like, this is my role as a father,
Right.
priest, provider, protector, for the benefit not just of you, but more importantly for your family, for your children, for your wife. And not every time it works out in the way that it worked out for you. Like, I'm a product of my children.
Right.
I'm divorced. I'm currently divorced, still working on my relationship. I, too, had a journey where I had to take accountability for my actions and had to shift how I not only conduct myself with my children, but even with my ex-wife, even to this day. It's a continuous thing that you have to continually work at.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just sitting here listening to you guys, and I'm trying not to say something, but it's like I can't help but say it. The resentment that builds. Like I'm being selfless.
Talk about it.
I'm serving, but I'm like, damn. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got needs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
and here's the thing. When you say communication, that hit me so hard because it was like me and my wife, that was my weakness. Was I'm trying to protect, but I'm covering up a lie to do it.
Right.
So I'm protecting everybody else, but I'm getting jabbed, and I'm saying, oh, I'm all right, and I'm not all right.
Right.
So for me, it was like I struggled with doing the whole selfless serving, and I need my wife to caress me, hold me, and affirm me. And for whatever reason, that is not being clearly communicated, understood, acknowledged, valued, whatever. That was a struggle for me, man. 10 plus years.
Well, Crump, I think most men struggle because it means you need some help, or you're not as strong, right? Like, I think the guy was Michael Baisden had this book. I never read it, but the title of it was "Men Cry in the Dark," and so it almost shows a sign of weakness to say, "Oh, I need a hug," or like you say, I need her to caress me or whatever. And you do need these things at times to go out, to renew, to go out and do whatever you got to do again the next day. And it's like you said, communicate. One thing I have learned is to communicate more direct.
Right, where your needs are.
Yes, more direct.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I found this is my experience, bro. You sitting there trying like, man, let me say it this way.
Right.
Let me say it that way. and the whole time, she wanted honest. She wanted to be truthful. Like, it ain't even like, so what I've learned that I had some preconceived notions about my wife that was just not true.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so for me, the experience of me assuming some things that, oh, you're going to take it this way, or it's going to be harsh, and that was not the case at all.
Right.
And that our women, our wives are tougher than we realize.
Oh, way tougher.
You know what I'm saying? But it's even like, I'm just listening to you, and I'm processing my own.
Emotionally, they're probably tougher than us.
Yeah.
I also think it comes down to a level of comfort as well, in terms of, because that communication piece is the important piece, because that's how you really start to peel back the layers and see the vulnerability, not just with yourself, but with your wife as well. Because as we know, our women want us to be vulnerable to them. They want to see the emotional side. You too strong. You a man. You too rough. Show me your emotions. And of course, the world will have you believe that a man that is emotional is a weak man. You know what I'm saying? So I think that if you can't be vulnerable with the person you sleep with next to every night, who can you be vulnerable with? If you can't be honest with the person you sleep with next to, the person you spend money with, the person you have children with, who can you be vulnerable with? So I think a lot of it starts with that open communication with your partner. But it's something that has to be nurtured over time, as you very well know.
I agree with it. It definitely has to be nurtured. I believe it has to be nurtured over time.
And different situations
yeah.
would encourage different levels of communication, different vulnerabilities. So the money conversation, the love conversation, the values, the children conversations, those conversations come over time.
And how you say it. I know I struggle with that. Even though it can be direct, it's still how you say it.
Sure.
You know, because
again, I don't want another quote. It's never what you say, it's how you say it. It's never what you do, it's how you do it. Yeah, that's important. That's important. I want to make a quick pivot because you got a hooper, man. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a hooping table, right?
Right. Some of us hoop on this table.
Chizzy Chizzy's a referee.
Some of us hoop. Some of us hoop.
I'm an average hooper, man.
No, you got that deep.
You an average hooper?
Yeah,
Google. Go ahead and Google.
Oh, here you go.
Here we go.
But listen.
Shout out to Drake, man.
Yeah. Here we go.
Let's stay focused. Look, he's a great referee. You're a good defender. I'm a cold-blooded killer. But the point is, let's talk about your son, who's nice with it, playing at a program at Grayson High School. Shout out to the Rams. Top 100 program in the country. Your son is known for that silky smooth J handle, composure with the rock. What has been like, man? Mark has been J'ing up the threes since second grade. Like, I saw a little home video that he showed me on YouTube. I'm like, man, he was in second grade shooting threes. Like, now he's in high school.
Yeah.
You've been on him. You've been with him. You've been encouraging him. But you done made an adjustment these past couple of years as a dad who's his trainer, right? Shout out to E.T. But as a dad who is trainer, like, you've kind of fall back more in the dad role now. And how has that journey been with your son, like just being on top of him for the past 10 years in his basketball journey?
Man, coaching your son is hard, especially when he started playing. And in some ways, we're talking about communicating and how you communicate with him. Now, I know him like nobody else. Like I know what he can do, or I can tell when he's giving his best or whatever. But it's beautiful to me. Mm-hmm. You know, it has nurtured our relationship playing AAU. Because sometimes you get on those rides and you can, you know, the conversation isn't about basketball, right. You know, and we're just in our safe space where, you know, dad to son or son to dad, and we can really just chop it up.
Sure. Are you one of those dads that's very mindful of the car ride home? You ever saw that book or that quote?
No,
that story?
let me tell you something. I'm 100% mindful of that, and I'm guilty of it, right? Because that car ride home for a kid can be tough.
So let's talk about it a little bit, because some of our viewing audiences and our listeners don't quite know what that means.
It's a popular. I don't know if it was published, but it was a popular book quote about the car ride home, saying how the kids who get out of the sport, who gets traumatized, who gets disconnected from their parents, is that on the car ride home after a game, the parents just drilled them to death. Right. So they demoralized the kid. The kid not only fell in love with the game, but they fell in love with relationship with their parents.
I 100% agree with that. And it's funny that you say that, because this was a shift for me and Junior. And I always call him Junior because my granddad, they call my granddad Junior. But one guy had came up to me in the gym, and he was like, man, you being too hard on your son. Mm-hmm. And one day, me and my son was riding home, and he said, Dad, do you think I'm good at basketball? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, you good at basketball. And he didn't say nothing, but I knew where that was coming from. Right, because it wasn't enough positive reinforcement on the car ride home. Yeah. Considering his age and, you know, as a person who played basketball, and sometimes the ball just don't bounce your way. Sometimes it feels great coming off your hand and it just don't go in. You know, that was a real big revelation to hear him say that, because for one, and that's one of the reasons I stopped coaching him, for one, it's more important to me to be his dad than his coach. 100%. For two, like Crump saying, I didn't want him to stop playing or stop loving basketball because he dreaded if he didn't play well or whatever, what his dad was going to say.
Yeah, because kids are always looking for that acceptance from their parents. Right?
Oh, what you talking about?
And parents, sometimes they live vicariously through their children in these sports. So what happens is you're projecting all of that energy, all of those feelings you probably had at high school. Or there's times you missed the three, or there's times you missed the dunk. You know what I'm saying? You're putting that on CJ. You're putting that on Marcus. My son, he runs track. He doesn't play basketball. So I try to just beat her. So luckily for me, I ain't got to put none of that on him. Right. Because he runs track. You get what I'm saying? So
he's tall, athletic, but he was like, man, my dad's a ref. So this ain't really going. I was with this guy, man. I saw his J and I was like,
I don't want that smoke. That's what actually I don't want that smoke.
But what I wanted to share was
you're funny.
But what I wanted to share was that CJ had a game today, and I'm listening to me and Moms, and like sometimes we be capping as parents, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we gotta be honest. We be capping as parents, but I look at Marcus, right? Top 100 team in the country.
Yeah.
Starting point guard on the freshman team, but the head coach is calling you now, and we got a plan for Marcus, right? My son, leading scorer, hit about 5 or 6 threes tonight.
Yeah.
I'm like, defense. I'm like, Chris, when you was in 7th grade, you was not making threes like that. Like, stop lying. Like, you wasn't making threes. In 7th grade,
I agree.
At 13 years old, your shot wasn't there yet.
I mean, you probably weren't even making them as an adult. Let's be real. But anyway, keep going.
But the point I'm making is, I made a shift like you made a shift. The reason why I'm breaking all that about it, I don't even really train my son at all no more. I really focus on being a dad, and I don't talk about the sport. I talk about Forex, real estate, life.
Right.
Are you being a blessing today? We got the dope email from his school today, be like, man, you guys, the way you raise him, his leadership, how he helps the class, how he helps students, like how he supports the teachers, like literally, my wife was like smiling all day because, that's our focus. I was like, bro, your character, like, I'm gonna teach you life. Like, I don't even care about what my kids learn in school for real because it's regurgitated in a lot of ways. Right? It's a rote learning,
memory
from a history book that you could Google. Right? So my thing is learn leadership. Learn character, learn some social skills, get some awareness because that information in the book, school system ain't really cover technology.
Right.
You can get information like this, but you can't get character like that.
Right, yeah.
You can't be a leader like that. So my biggest thing, my children like active, engaged, challenging. Those things are important for me and how you treating people.
Right.
And so, man, I just it's an honor to have you on because I know the type of man you are, type of father you are, type of husband you are. You active in the local community, giving back your free time as a VP of the GAA. So
yeah, but I wanted to say something though, since we're talking about manhood, right? And I'm not gonna go into every detail about how Crump and I met, but it does say something about men, and you're trying to operate in honor. Sure. So Crump moved here. Shout out to Wolfpack.
Yeah.
He was trying to get Wolfpack off the ground, and as he mentioned earlier, I'm involved with our rec basketball program, and that's how we met. Okay. Right? We didn't know him from Adam, right? But just some stuff that was going on, and whatever reason, our spirits clicked, right? And we did what we had to do, but we operated in honor. I told him, hey, look, I'll do X, Y, Z. He said, I'll do X, Y, Z. And me and him, this wasn't like we known each other 6 months or whatever the case may be. And he's kept his word, and I kept my word, as like speaking to my granddad, like a handshake. Hey, you gave me your word, you're gonna do X, Y, Z, and boom. Our relationship just flourished from us operating in honor and in the right spirit.
Sure.
Yeah, and he was there for me, man. I actually hit a hard patch, and this is important for men. Like, I'm at a place in my life now. We're literally the basement of my crib, right? And but I when I came here, we got the house. I lost my contract in Bermuda,
right?
And my wife wasn't working, so this was not even 4 years ago. This was not even 4 years ago. And I came to Mark and said, bro, I need help financially. And I promised to, like, whatever your son need, you won't never have to give me no money for it. You know what I mean? And when somebody was there for you in a time where Crump looks real good on Instagram right now. But shoot, man, I was Ubering, I was hustling, I was doing whatever I had to do because I was trying to honor my wife too, because like she wasn't working. So it was like, and if she saw me working, she was like 9 months in, she said, Chris, let me just get a side hustle. Let me just get I appreciate you trying, man, but let me just get a little something. But Marcus was one of those guys I was like, I didn't, our family's a sharecroppers. Me telling Master my daddy for $100, like, boy, $100. Right. I'm like, I'm not even gonna stress my family members, but man, he came through clutch for me. And I just appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you for that.
Appreciate you too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, because Crump is part of, like, before we got on the air, since sometimes I got to kidnap my son, Crump is part of my village, sure. And it's some things or some people, whomever, I just want my son to get it. And it's some things that he can impart in my son that maybe be a shortcoming of mine, and I can see certain things shift in him. And so, I mean, talking about having part of a village and having a good village, like he said, he appreciate me, but I also appreciate him.
Yeah, we talked about that off camera, how that, there's certain things that you could say to your son.
Correct.
That may come across differently than what you can say and what I could say, and vice versa. You
know
what I mean? So it's important to have not multiple perspectives, but individuals who can pour into them in different ways because they receive the information a lot different. The village to me is an untapped resource in our community.
Well, I think I think it became an untapped resource, and I say that because I grew up in a small town, and I was Junior's grandson, right? I may not have been Marcus, but I was Junior's grandson. So when I went out, not only did I represent myself, but I represented him too, because if I did something, they didn't say Marcus did it; they said Junior did it. But all those people in that community cared about me. They was trusted to discipline me if my grandfather wasn't around. Now we live in a place, and I'm not saying all of it is unwarranted, with some of the stuff that people do, but now we live in a place where if he do something, call me, right? Crump, if Marcus stays at Crump house, Crump don't need to call me.
Yeah, he's got his
you see what I'm saying? Crump, Marcus is under his roof,
values,
whatever they do, and he don't need to call me. If he calls me, then I'm gonna reinforce what he said. I'm not gonna go to Crump like some people do. Well, why did you do this to my kid? Or tell me no. Marcus, whatever Crump said, that's what happened.
Sure.
You are a kid under his roof. It shouldn't be. That's not a debate about if you're gonna do when or where or how. That's not a debate.
And the expectation, translates in the community. So
right,
leaves the environment.
Correct.
He still knows that he's got to conduct himself in a particular way.
Correct.
And that spans the relationship. So now you have built capacity in that young man to really, really know how to function. So now he knows, like in Bermuda, my name, most people, Bermuda's a small place, 22 square miles. So I know when I leave the house, everybody's going to know my dad, Stephen Powell. He's a pastor. So they have an expectation of how I'm supposed to conduct myself. So
Correct.
that gives you, that keeps you in line. And also gives the other people the free rein to say, boy, who your daddy is.
Correct.
Like, come on, you're not supposed to be acting the fool. And fortunately for me, I never really got into a lot of mischief. But to your point, like that community extends past
Correct.
just that interpersonal you have within that household. It goes into the community. And the kids need to benefit from that because that village, like you said, has kind of gotten limited to a smaller space. We've kind of gotten away from it.
Well, the village is strong because, excuse me, one thing I learned when I went off in the military, and I know we live in a place or a time where individualism is separated, but one of the first things they taught about survival was if you want to survive, is you want to be part of a group.
Sure.
And right now, for the men in this room, we have professions that we do on a day-to-day basis, but we also have other skills that we can do, right? He can do the camera. Someone might know how to do electrical. The resources or the tools that you need is in that group. You see what I mean? Yeah. You don't have to do it by yourself. And
here's the thing: it's actually from we talk about the archetypes of masculinity. Is actually brotherhood is a requirement. It's a necessity.
Right.
Like men actually feel more of a man when they're around men who compliment them as a man.
Correct.
Like you actually feel there's a mental disconnect. There's an emotional disconnect. There's a loneliness when you feel like, man, I ain't really the vibe, the energy, the connect. It's just not there. It actually plays on your psyche because you actually know subconsciously, I need that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like even getting it meets the actual humanity need within a man. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So we're here, but as you are now, you got all this experience. You got all of this. Like, as a man, what is your goals for you, your family? Like, where are you? Why are you pushing? Where are you still going? Where are you still trying to hold the anchor to for your family?
Well, I have a small transportation company. As far as me and my wife, I think I'm not gonna say we're good, but we're good. Right. In that aspect, I don't foresee, like, we'll die together the way I see it. Like, for what we've grown and been through and overcame. I don't have a fear of that. As far as my kids, man, I just want them to, of course, go after their dreams. But like Crump was saying, I'll give you an example. I'll say this, then I'll say something. It's have good character. Yeah. Is be good to people. And I'm saying that because I did something when I was younger, and this was a profound time for me. And what I did, it was stupid. I knew better, but I did it. And a guy, he was a little bit older than me, and he said, Marcus, you got to protect your last name. Right. You see what I'm saying? You got to protect your last name. And that comes with just having good character, and that takes you a long way. People don't want to work with people who don't have good character. Facts. Nobody's going to recommend you for anything if you don't have good character. If you're not treating people how you want to be treated, that's just not how the world works. Yeah. I know I've gotten some things that I didn't deserve.
Yeah, and the last question is, we got to ask this question: who's the GOAT in basketball?
In my opinion,
probably in all opinions.
No. Let's hear what he has to say.
In my opinion, I consider LeBron James the GOAT.
Oh my goodness!
Where's the cap? Give me that cap right there.
You serious?
Yeah.
Well, here you go, bro. It's the next level. This fits. You can put that on.
Yeah, I will.
You said LeBron James?
You asked me. In my opinion, I consider LeBron James the GOAT.
Oh. Let me give you some context.
You don't have to give me no context.
Let him qualify this.
And this is why.
We about to shut this mic off, but let him qualify this statement.
Even I will say this: if you say Jordan the GOAT, I'm not gonna push back on you on that. But in my opinion, I feel like LeBron James is the GOAT. And if you don't feel like he is the all-time best player, I will probably say he will go down as one of the, if not the most accomplished players, if you don't consider the championships. He's gonna be all-time leading scorer. He's gonna finish top 10 in assists. I'm not sure where he's gonna go in rebound. And he went to the finals 10 straight years. And I consider the championships, when people say Michael Jordan won 6 championships, I consider that the Chicago Bulls won 6 championships. Because I'm old enough to know when I seen Detroit and Boston, I'm old enough to know when they was popping Michael Jordan every year in the playoffs.
Please,
but see, no. I'm not taking away that he individually was doing his thing. But what I'm qualifying is when you say he got 6 championships, it takes a team to get those 6 championships. Because hold on. Let me finish. Just let me finish.
3 of them championships came after he retired. Went to play basketball.
Baseball in his 30s.
Baseball. His daddy died. He came back.
No.
Three-peat, back-to-back. Like, come on.
I'm not taking that.
Bron ain't never gonna do that in his life. I'm sure Bronny comes to the league tomorrow. But this is the thing.
I'm not taking that away from him. Yeah. What I'm saying is we put so much weight on a team accomplishment and we give it to one individual. Just let me finish. Yeah. I never hear nobody say, well, Steve Kerr won 3 in a row, or B.J. Armstrong won 3 in a row.
Because hold on. Good conversation.
No, but what I'm saying is you're attributing a team accomplishment to one individual. And I will say that I've seen, and Michael Jordan dropped 60-something on Boston. They took a L. But and I'm saying that to say not that he wasn't good enough. I'm saying that to say his team wasn't good enough. The same thing with LeBron. He went to the finals against San Antonio, nobody expected him to win that finals when you look at the team, the people he had on his team. So what we're doing the reverse with LeBron. What we're saying is you lost, so it's all your fault.
No.
That's what we're doing. Hold on. And
You ain't let me talk. You said hold on 15 times.
I'm gonna let you talk.
No.
And he lost to a team.
Listen, Marcus.
LeBron doesn't want to take your final shot at the end. He's not a killer.
Listen. Let me tell you. Let me give you
I'm gonna address that.
Let me give you a real basketball logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like assassin mentality.
I know you do.
Right?
Kobe.
So when I play in a basketball game and you can't hear the coach, and like when I'm playing, I think of Greece, my championships in college, you can't hear the coach. You can't hear your teammates. You got to get a player that says, y'all get out the way. Don't worry. I'm going to bring this home. I look at the score, look at the situation. I know the foul. I know the player who's the worst defender. I make all this up because I got to bring the championship home. Mm-hmm. I never questioned that with Jordan. Like, I'm not, all the stats and the hydro chambers are good. Michael Jordan's drinking wine, playing golf, but give me the ball with the last 2 minutes, we're going to win the championship.
Let me finish. The most game winners?
Let me finish.
LeBron?
Let me finish.
I'm just asking, of them in the play, who has the most game winners?
Listen.
Man.
Marcus, let me finish. No, let me finish. Because in those situations, I know how people think. So when LeBron was like, oh, Dallas, we got the best team, but
pass it to somebody else.
I'm not going to shoot the whole fourth quarter because, I'm going to shut social media. So when he had to learn how to, get over his anxiety, I never seen that from a dog. So then he was like, yeah, and then and I'm going to get there, but because I don't want the risk of me making free throws or whatever, I'm going to pass it to a shooter. It's like, bro, don't put that on nobody. Like, make that play. And that was 50-50 with LeBron until 4 years ago.
See what I hear from you?
4 years ago.
This is what I hear you saying. I will make no excuse for LeBron losing to Dallas. They should have won that championship. Zero excuse. But what I do hear you saying is you would take someone who just fires off rounds than a sniper. See, I'm okay with the sniper.
You're paraphrasing.
As long
as a paraphrase.
That's what you're saying. You're saying I want a guy who chuck up.
You put words in my mouth.
And I'm gonna say
ain't nobody say nothing about no guns.
Because but see, I'm a basketball guy.
Yeah.
But think
I'm
about
a basketball player.
So if you go look at the stats, right?
Don't do that.
Hold on. And I'm gonna just show you how efficient LeBron is. LeBron probably was in year, I think, 3 years, played 3 years longer than Michael Jordan had played. And he still had not taken as many shots as Michael Jordan had taken. Okay. And just think about this now. This guy is not known as a scorer. Nobody considers him the greatest scorer. But he will be. When it's come next month.
Shout out to the hydro chambers. Shout out to the hydro chambers and the rules change.
Come next month.
And taking 20 games off every season.
He will be. He's not listed as a point guard, but he's gonna pass Magic on the all-time assist list.
You know what I define as a GOAT? A guy that takes an average
all the
team.
shots.
No, a guy that
but
takes.
that's what LeBron been doing.
Hold on. He takes
LeBron
an average team and makes everybody around him great.
Well, that's what he's been doing. That's what he's known for.
He has been doing that. I have to give him that.
That's what he's been doing. Every team when he leaves, they don't make the playoffs. That's the impact that he has on when he was in his peak. When he leaves, the team don't make the playoffs. When he was in his peak, Golden State said, we better go get KD because you know why? If we hit this monster in the finals next year, we ain't got enough.
Now, he's good. It's just a Jordan thing. That's the only thing.
Well,
he's a GOAT of his era.
And
he's a GOAT of his time.
I'll say this for full transparency.
Hydro Chamber took 20 games off every season to help him go out 20 years to play with his son. Great.
I'll say this for full transparency. We all grew up in the Jordan era. I wasn't a Jordan fan.
Who was your
I was an Isaiah Thomas fan.
Come on, man. He's Isaiah Thomas.
So I would say with full transparency, I never rooted for Michael Jordan. So just like
is this hate at the core of it? Is it hate? Let's be honest. This boy man king. We gotta be honest.
It's not hate, but
it's okay. Nobody's perfect.
If you roll with Isaiah, if you
Isaiah Thomas is a Jordan fan.
If you roll with Isaiah Thomas in that time, and
your son wears Jordans or LeBrons. What shoes do your son wear? Does he wear Jordan?
That's a whole nother issue. That's a whole nother issue. See, we put that on our kid and give me some. See, I'm gonna give credit what credit due. All those guys, LeBron, Steph, we all stand on the shoulders of somebody, and they stand on Michael Jordan's shoulders, with the commercials and what he did to take the NBA to the next level. Nobody can never, I would be an idiot to try to take that away from him, the impact that he's had on basketball.
Just add GOAT to the end.
Every kid in the driveway dreamed of being Michael Jordan,
That's just Michael Jordan.
And the things that he have, the logo is when you see the logo, it's like seeing Coke. That's MJ. Nobody is gonna ever have that kind of impact on the. Think about it. I'm 47. Yeah. I was telling Jada, cause Crump owed me a pair of J's, because those Jordan 4s, black and red, that was the first shoe that I bought on my own. Mm-hmm. So the shoes, all those things, that lends to the lure of Michael Jordan. People can't separate
the greatness,
those two things from what happens between the lines and the lure.
The greatness of just a dominant.
But see, I rooted for Detroit. And
we get it now. The context is everything.
But I would say this: people don't give Isaiah Thomas, in my opinion, enough credit. And I say that because Isaiah Thomas beat Jordan. He owned Jordan. Let's make that accurate.
Owned Jordan?
He went crying by the river. He said he went crying by the Chicago river.
But what I'm saying is,
Jesus, help me with the Jordan rules. If we all follow him at the same time,
if you look at their playoff record, I think he's 4-1 against Jordan in the playoffs. So that's not a debate. He popped Bird.
But it's not in the GOAT conversation.
No, he's not in the GOAT conversation. He's not in the GOAT conversation.
I want hold on before we go down.
Magic.
Hold on, Marcus. Before we go there, I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
I want you to know that I love you. Everything's okay.
It's mutual, man.
Yeah, and we appreciate you having you on the show.
Okay.
So with that being said, thank you for watching the Boy Band King podcast.
My man.
Nah, man, this is a great episode, man.
We can appreciate you. We can have this talk for a long.
We could.
That GOAT conversation.
And I'm glad that I know more about, what I mean,
the context.
Yeah, context is everything, and your challenges, and I get it.
But man, on a different note, man, I wish you guys nothing but the best. Crump.
Thank you. Man.
I got nothing but love for you and your family.
Yeah, man, you already know what it is.
I'm proud of you though. From when I first met you.
Yeah,
you hitting some targets.
Yeah, man, appreciate
you. I admire you from afar. I'm glad to call you a friend. Wish you nothing but love, my guy.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that, man.
Love, man.
That's it. The journey continues, man.